so is our next guest. We're always honored to have him aboard. He is Senator Pat Toomey from Pennsylvania, and he joins us here on WSBA. Good morning, Senator. How are you?
Good morning, Gary. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking. Good to have you aboard here. And, we wanted to talk a little bit about President Biden is out around the country right now saying it's time for the Congress to pass his economic proposals here. The word infrastructure has taken on new meaning. I used to remember when it was like concrete and steel and buildings and roads, and now it seems to kind of be all-inclusive. Talk a little bit about the president's new definition of infrastructure.
Well, so this is politics for you, Gary. The fact is infrastructure is reasonably popular. People understand that as our economy and our society grows, we need additional roads and newer bridges and airports and water transportation, the kind of the systems and platforms that we share to move people and goods and services throughout our economy.
Sure.
People get that. They know how important that is. And because that has a positive sort of impression in people's mind, the Biden administration's decision was our massive, huge expansion of government in all directions of people's lives, which is his goal. Let's just call it all infrastructure. Just call it infrastructure. And if people don't scratch beneath the surface, they'll think that's a great thing. And so this is very, very inaccurate, to put it mildly. This is mostly a massive expansion of the welfare state. You know, if you think about it, it's pretty clear that Biden wants to be this transformational figure, right?
Absolutely.
FDR famously created the social safety net. We didn't have one in America. There was no Social Security or Medicare or unemployment insurance, and FDR put those things in place. And then LBJ was the next big transformational by launching the war on poverty and having trillions of dollars over decades, trillions of dollars in wealth transfer from middle and upper income people to the very poor. What Biden wants to do here, judging by his policies, is have the middle class of America dependent on government. They're going to dramatically diminish growth. That's just not my projection. That's becoming a universal projection. If he gets his way, growth goes down, employment goes down, wages go down, but people will be dependent on government, and government will be there with a check and a program for the middle class. That's their aspiration.
And then you'll be there every 2, 4, and 6 years to vote for them to continue that way of life because you're getting free stuff, right? Is that kind of the ergo that we have that sentence?
When you start to try to figure out motives, it's always a little bit tricky, but I'm sure people have done that calculation.
You know, it's interesting. I was reading an article on CNN Politics the other day, and it talked about that President Biden might be reaching for the same kind of things that President Franklin Roosevelt did, author of the New Deal, and Lyndon Johnson, who was author of The Great Society, when he enshrined Medicare and Medicaid, and, of course, the New Deal for Franklin Roosevelt. But one of the things that it seems is happening right now, and we saw it yesterday with the refugee change, where he now upped the number of refugees who can come into our country here during the course of the year from the 15,000 under the Trump administration, now like 62,000 or whatever, 62,500.
Yeah.
But he originally said that wasn't a great idea. Then he got pushed by the progressives. He said, I guess it is. And it looks like that's kind of the modus operandi right now, which is, okay, I'm going to try to stop at a certain point, but the left is going to say, no, you haven't gone far enough yet, and they're continuing to do that on every single item right now from the looks of it. Am I missing something?
Well, I think that characterization is generally correct with one caveat, and that is I'm not sure that he ever really wants to push back. Yes, it's true that initially his refugee number was lower. I'm not sure that was a carefully thought-through policy decision. But the fact is the left is in charge. The radical left is totally in charge of the Democratic Party and of this administration. Look, AOC herself had said in a televised interview how the progressives are so pleased and Joe Biden has done so much more for them than they expected.
Right.
It's the executive orders, the avalanche of executive orders that blows away any previous president in volume, but also hard left appointees across the executive branch that come from extremely liberal backgrounds, and these policies. I mean, it's trillions and trillions of dollars, and then he comes back and wants trillions more. It's we need to push back hard, and we are, and I'm going to continue to push back. And this will do a lot of damage. The amount of debt that they're racking up, the dependency they want to create, the tax increases that will slow down our economy. And let me just say one other point here while I'm on my soapbox here, Gary. One of the maddening things about this is just before the pandemic hit, we had the best economy of my lifetime.
Right. Record
low unemployment, strong economic growth, wage gains that were accelerating, and fastest of all for low-income workers. What was wrong with that picture? Why not go back to the best economy of my lifetime?
And yet one of the things that the president continues to talk about out on the road and whenever he gets a chance is it's time for the wealthy to pay their fair share. Now, this isn't the first time we've heard this. This has been, dogma that you've heard for a long time from his particular side of the aisle, which is fine. But no one ever is quite sure what fair share is. And, of course, we say, well, if you make less than $400,000, then you're not rich. If you make more than $400,000 a year, you are rich. You need to pay more. This idea that we don't have any equitability across the whole breadth of society is still bothersome to a lot of us. And going to what you said, that when we take more money out of the pockets of people, we take less freedom to make those choices from those people and put it in the hands of the government, going back to the very idea you talked about a moment ago.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. And we have a weaker economy. Look, it's a important and interesting question. What is fair, right? What's the right amount? The Democrats won't answer that question. And the fact that the top 1% of wage earners in America make 20% of all the wages. They pay 40% of all the taxes.
Right.
Okay, that's not their fair share. Okay, what is? Would it be if they paid 60%? Do they need to pay 80%? I mean, where does this go? They won't answer that question. Here's the other thing they don't want to admit. According to nonpartisan congressional budget offices, the corporate income tax mostly comes out of employees' wages, about 70%. Remember, corporations don't print. They don't have a printer in the basement, right? They have to collect that money.
Right.
And it has to come in either by raising prices to consumers or lowering compensation to their employees and to some degree lowering returns to investors, which are half of all Americans. So, they're going to, if Biden has his way, they'll raise taxes on business, make American business less competitive. We'll sell less products around the world. This is not good for our economy or the workforce.
Let me ask you one final question. We have about 30 seconds left.
Yeah,
I continue to read that a number of Democrats are dismayed, particularly in the Senate on Capitol Hill, about where this is going and the amount of money that's being spent, and that it's not out there publicly being said as much, but privately it is. Are you getting a sense from some of your Democratic colleagues that they're not terribly happy with where this is going, or they just have to kind of toe the line and continue to walk along lockstep?
I think there is increasing anxiety about the scale of this and how fast and how much is happening. The fact that municipalities and state governments all across America have gotten so much cash from the federal government, they literally don't know what to do with it. They're
right.
Sitting on these mountains of cash. And what we need to do, according to the Biden administration, send them more. And yes, it is. Some guys are starting to raise their eyebrow, but honestly, are they going to vote against it? I don't know. Maybe some of this tax policy gets moderated a little bit in order to get the votes of people like Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. We'll see. But unfortunately, right now, it looks like the radical left is in control.
Conversation to be continued, Senator. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I always appreciate you stopping by each month, and have a great week.
Thanks for having me, Gary.
Take care.